So in our first lesson, we took the raw leaf photos that I made, and then you selected them, and we ended up with leaves with a transparent background. So we had several of those. What we want to do is put all of the leaves on one image. So we're going to go File, New, and keeping the untitled part is really stupid because nothing is organized. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 5 leaves with transparent background. I'm just going to put BG. Now, the width, the last thing I made happened to be the right width for what I want. So this is what we'd call a 3K, so it's 3000 by 3000. If you're wondering why there's the 48, it's all just because of how we double our numbers: 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, etc. It all ends up just with those extra numbers left over. Make sure the units are pixels, none of these other crazy ones, so we're using pixels. So that's all we really need to at this point in time, and then we just have to click Create. So here we are, it's got a file with the name that I gave it, and it's got a white background. If you don't have yours coming straight to layers, then you'll need to go Window and then come down to layers. You could push F7 to bring up layers. But this is a white background layer. Right at the very bottom, there's some icons. The one that on my screen has a plus is create a new layer. So that by default is called layer 1, and I can't delete this one at the moment because it's got a padlock on it. So I click the padlock, it's now no longer locked. So this white layer I don't want. I can either click the trash can or I can drag it down to the trash can, whichever you like. I'll just click the trash can and it says delete the layer 0, and if you hate that message, click don't show again and then yes and then see you later. So I've only got the one layer, and that one is the transparent. It's good practice to label, so I'll double click and then this is just background BG transparent. And then what we have to do is we have to bring in all of our other leaves. So I'm going to close that other one that I had, and essentially what I'm going to do 5 times over is place the other leaves. I'll have to adjust their sizes so that they all fit and take up as much space as possible, but still leave a decent gap. So I'm going to click File, and then I'm going to choose Place. Now there are 2 choices. If I choose Place Linked, the good thing about that is if I've made a mistake with my leaf selection, I could go back and fix that one leaf and it will update. If I choose Place Embedded and there's a mistake in that leaf, I have to delete it and then re-bring it in. So I'm going to go with Place Linked, and then it's going to ask me which one. So I'm going to get one, and I think I can actually get a whole bunch of them at once, but I'll just deal with one. So I'm going to click Place, and my cursor wasn't loaded. I didn't have to place it anywhere, but that's too big. I can see handles around the outside, and the other buttons that are really important is this, I guess, cancel and says commit transform enter, just basically the tick box. So I'm thinking about how big does it need to be to fit 5 of these in. As I resize it, be really careful about like these shortcut keys. If I want to squash it, I can hold down shift and it stuffs up the aspect ratio, but if I don't hold down shift, then it just maintains its aspect ratio. That's a good thing about Photoshop. Some other applications don't do that. So I'm going to pop that one up there. And then I can't do anything else until I click this tick. So once I click tick, you'll see some of that stuff has disappeared. If I want to move it later on, I can click this move button. If I hover over it, it should show me, it's move tool. The letter is V if you want to use the shortcut key. So I could click that. And if I need the transform controls, mine are on that tick box. You can see the tick box, and it brings up the handles. So I can move those should I need to. So I'm going to repeat those steps. Place linked, leaf 2. Obviously a sensible name is best, and I'm just popping these around and then going yes, repeat, file, place linked to the third leaf, place, that one's down there. I'm going to go yes, and I'm going to put mine in color order just because that's how my brain works. Place linked, must be up to number 4 by now. That one I would probably have labeled 5, but thanks very much, Emily, for doing the last ones whilst I was busy. It looks like you've done a great job. Place linked, must be up to the last one there, place, and then we'll reduce that in size, and then go yes. So I reckon some kind of an order like that. Now if we look at that, there's a huge amount of wasted space. But we do need a gap in between each leaf. So to start with, I'm just going to move these around a little bit and then think about making them all a bit bigger. So you have to have show transform controls, otherwise you can't have the handles to grab one handle and make it bigger. So I'm going to go around, and then each time you have to confirm and click again. If you click just the once, it moves the entire leaf. You can put them up near the corners fine, and that's not a problem. But this row down here I might get a bit cramped, so I'll go one click and then another click, and I can drag and make that bigger, and then I'll pop this down. By the corners, not so bad, but don't make them way too close to each other. This one, click, and then click the edge, make it a bit bigger. That looks too big. Maybe the other one's just too small in comparison. Don't want to spend all day doing something like this, but do a decent job. I just don't want my video to take forever. So let's pretend that that's perfect. It's clearly not, but let's go with, hey, it's perfect. And we're going to go File, and we're going to go Save As. Now, I'm going to keep it in this folder called My Leaf Textures, because that's a sensible folder for it to be in. The formats that work. The format must have transparencies. Photoshop documents do, but they're really large file sizes. So I'm going to save one like that just to show the file size differences, and I'll click OK. That's not the one I'm going to use. So I'll repeat that step. File, Save As. Now other formats like JPEG, they're flat and they don't have transparency. So JPEG for our purposes is not okay. We are wanting, you have to scroll down a little bit, PNG. So if I click that, and it says file must be saved as a copy with this selection, because it can't store data like layers or anything like that, and or any of the separate pieces of what each link to the leaf or anything like that is. So this is a copy. So that's why I've kept that Photoshop document version. If I click save, and then I've got various options. Large file size means there's no compression whatsoever, and it saves fast and it opens fast. Medium is sufficient for us. We're not going to lose much data really. So I'm going to go with medium, that's the default, and I go OK. And then it's saving, waiting for that 99% to actually disappear. It's down the bottom here. It's being a pain, probably because OneDrive, there it is. So then when I come back to Finder, when it will let me, if we have a look at these, if you look at the Photoshop document version, you'll see it's 20.8 megabytes. If you look at the PNG version, you'll see it's 5.8 megabytes. So that's nearly 4 times bigger. I can't be bothered doing the actual maths, but 5 4s are 20, so that's close enough. It's not quite. So 4 point something, let's call it 4.9 or something. Right, so that part's done. And then I'll pause this and start Blender. So here we are, Blender is open. I'm using version 2.82a. Anything that's 2.8 and above will look extremely similar to this. Now this is the latest stable edition. 2.83 is out, but it's unstable at the moment. So as soon as you click off, the splash screen disappears. This is our default cube. It's highlighted. We know it's highlighted because it's got orange rectangle around the outside. I'm going to push X and then click delete. So bye-bye to that leaf. Now if I middle mouse button I'll actually turn on my screencast keys. I'm pushing N. This is a plugin that I have. If you haven't plugged it in, then you won't have it. So if I tick that box, you'll now see everything that I've pushed. So I'll push N again, and that got rid of that menu, and you'll see the letter N. So in the recording, you'll see what I'm doing. I'm going to look from side on, exactly side on. So up the top right here, this little gizmo, if I click that one, it's looking exactly down from the right side. Now it doesn't really matter if I've done the right or from the front or the back, but at the moment that's back orthographic. If I click Y again, it'll go front orthographic. But that's what we need for now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to insert, I'll make this bigger actually, I'm going to insert the reference picture so I know what shape to make my leaves. So to add something, I can either click add. I'm not much of a button clicker. I'm more of a shortcut user. You'll see it there at Shift A. So I just go Shift A and you'll see the red writing, and I'm going to add in, there's two ways to do it. You can either go empty image, that's the way I'm used to doing it, but you can go straight to image reference, and then it's going to ask you where to go to, and I have to go to where I put it, and L for leaf, sort by name, leaf project, my leaf textures, and not the PSD version because that's really big. I want this one here, PNG, and I load the reference image. So there it is, and we have a look at that. That's actually not too bad. It's not great either because we can see a whole lot of white around the outside. So we might want to repeat those, but hey, I'm not going to say that that was bad by one of my students because this is the one I did and it's got a white edge. So what we would probably do is go back and in Photoshop shift the edge in a few percentage points. It's not going to make a lot of difference for our purposes. We're still going to learn how to do the task. That red one there, a little bit rushed. So what we'll do later on is repeat these without having those the white edge part to it. So anyhow, that's our reference picture, and it's kind of annoying when it's exactly on the origin. So I'm going to push G for grab and Y for this green Y-axis, and I'm just going to move, and it's just going to go backwards a little bit. And then when I left click, it drops. This funny looking circle, that's the 3D cursor, so anything else I import or add will add at that point. So again, add, Shift A, mesh plane. Now that plane is sitting flat, like that. That's going to be our leaf, believe it or not. Now I'm going to rotate this, so I'm going to push R to rotate. And this red axis here is X, so I'm going to push and release X. And I'm not going to free rotate it. I'm going to just type 90, enter. Job done. Now if I put that over the leaf, I can't see through it, and that's a pain. There are two choices to be able to see through it. My personal favorite is to push Z or Z and then go to wireframe, then I can see through it. The other choice, there's a button up here, some people like this one, and it kind of goes half see-through, so you can use whichever one you like. I find this one, with all of the, sort of that hazy look, kind of bugs me a little bit. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is do a little bit of editing. Not much, but just a little bit of editing. So I can't edit in this mode, so I have to change to object mode. Or not object mode, I'm already in object mode, excuse me. Change to edit mode. So now it's editable. I'm going to right click it and choose subdivide. So that just put a cut down the middle and a cut across the side. That may or may not work for me. It's kind of a round leaf, so I probably could. Yeah, I might just leave it there. At the most, I double clicked A. I think I should do it 3 times by accident. Hold down Option, click that one. I'm going to move this down. I'm going to double tap G and slide it down, and I'm going to put another cut across here. Control R and place it about there. Next, I'm going to go and grab a few vertices. So I'm going to push the letter C for circle. You'll see I push circle. You can change the size of your circle. Select. I'll grab all of those. And I go GX and bring that in. And click. Then grab that one, GX, and bring it in. Until it gets close to the edge. It does not have to be perfect. I'll do the same on the other side. GX, bring that in. Drop. GX, bring that in. GX, bring that in. GX, and bring that in. There's tons of leaf tutorials on the internet, but this is just for my class really. So that is the size of what my leaf is going to be. So if I come out of transparency mode, that's my leaf, believe it or not. It doesn't have the texture on it yet. So our next step is we have to tell Blender that's the final shape that we want. So with that part, it's a plane. I should name that leaf 01. And then what I have to do is I have to unwrap it. So if we come across to UV editing, you see that? That six-sided shape, that is nothing like the shape that I've actually made. So I have to unwrap it again. So with my mouse over this side, I push the letter U for unwrap, and then I just choose the first one, unwrap. And hey presto, it starts to look like the leaf, which is what I want. Problem is it's just a bit big for my purposes. So I'm going to go open, and then go back to where I was before. Sort by name, year 10, leaf project, my leaf textures, and I want that PNG, open image. So when I look over here, you can see the size of the leaf that I made doesn't match the background picture. So if I hover over this area, if I pushed A, it highlights all. That works now because I've only got one leaf. But when I've done this a second time, I'll have two leaves, and I don't want to highlight all. So if I hover over this and push L for island, it highlights all of the connected parts, which is fine now because I've still only got the one. That's too big. If I want to scale this to make it smaller, I push S and scale. And I don't know what's happened to my shortcut keys. That's annoying. Turn them off and on again. Does it work on this side? S for scale. Yeah, it's working now. It's buggy. And I'm just going to zoom in to make sure it's pretty darn close. So that's pretty good. So that's lined up, but it's, why is that not looking like a leaf? Even in material preview mode or in rendered mode, it's not looking like it yet. Why not? I haven't told it to be connected yet. So I'm now going to go to shading. And in shading, there's a bunch of other menus. So watch where my cursor goes. So in this area, it looks black with it, and I move slightly down, 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 down to there. My cursor changes so I can then hold down the left mouse button and click and drop. In this area, I'm going to be making a new texture. Some people come to this button over here and then create new, hit that new button, or you could hit this new button, do the same job, so it really doesn't make much difference. So I'll click this one, and you'll notice over here it's got a material 01. That's a dumb name for my first leaf. I think it would be better to call that leaf texture 01. I always like to number them, firstly to tell the difference, and secondly if I make a mistake and I make a second leaf, then I know which one's which. This confusing looking stuff here, largely we're going to ignore it, and we're just going to be dealing with this base color. We are not going to be doing any of the other extra complicated stuff that some other videos might be doing. So we have to add in an image texture. This box here I could change the color, and you might notice in that screen it changes to whatever that color happens to be. But if I leave it at that crazy blue color, you'll see that disappear soon. So I'm in this area, I'm going to add. Shift A is my shortcut key. It's really bugging me that the screencast keys keep turning off. Shift A to add. Can't even see that. It's a terrible plugin. I need a new version. And I go image, texture. Now this part, it's not currently open. When I connect this yellow dot to this yellow dot by clicking with my left mouse button and I pull, out comes this little connector, and then when I hover over that one, you'll see it went from bright white to grey, and I let go. The blue disappeared, and now it went black. That's because it doesn't have any data yet. So I'm going to go and open. I can either click open and go and navigate to it, but Blender's really helpful. It has a list of all of the photos that are already open, and I haven't opened many, so this list's going to be really short, quite helpful. I click this little image over here. I think that's supposed to be a mountain and a sun. So 5 leaves with transparent background. That's what I want. and then I can go and leave it alone. That 2 means it's used in 2 places, because you might remember that I opened it in this UV editing, so it's opened there and it's opened here. Just leave that 2 alone. Okay, so next thing to do is to have a look at this leaf. Looks like a leaf, right? But what's the problem? It's got a black background. So what we need to do is we need to make that black background be transparent. So we're going to do some mix shading. So this part here, so we're going to blend together, or mix together, the color. So this whole part here is responsible for the color of the surface. But what we're going to do is pull that out to create a bit of space, and we're going to have a mix. Shift A and click search, MIX, mix shader. So this mix shader, to save time, this I haven't clicked anything, so I'm just wiggling my mouse around. I'm not holding any mouse buttons. Watch what happens when I hover over that line. It goes from pale grey to white, and when I do that I can just click and it does the connections for me. If I don't do that, then I have to then pull all of the connectors off and reconnect it, and it's a pain. So this is going to mix this thing with whatever I connect there. And I need to connect in a transparency part. So I'm going to go Shift A, search, TRANS. Now there's 2, just read them carefully. One's translucent. That means it lets some light through. So we might actually do that if you wanted to let some light pass through the leaf, because then it won't be completely opaque. But for now, we'll just go with transparent. So the transparent part, that's going to plug into, and I'll put it in there, and we'll have a look and see, oh, that didn't do anything. So it doesn't yet know which parts should be transparent and which parts shouldn't be. One name for transparency is alpha transparency. So if we have a look over here, you might remember our 5 leaves has the transparency bit. So wherever it's transparent, I want to tell it to be transparent. So if I click this alpha and I pull out and I plug into factor, oh no, I got it the wrong way around. Boo-hoo. What should I do? I'll pull that one off and put that one on the bottom, and I flip it around. And that still, if we go to rendered mode and change to cycles, then I now have an overly dark leaf. Where's my light? Got a light there somewhere. That light there. Let's bring it down a bit in front, and I'll boost the light. Back to rendered mode. Bring the light in front. I see it in front. There we go. So now I can see a leaf. It's not transparent though. I'm not certain that it's transparent. I'll just confirm if it is or not. Add in some other thing like a torus and chuck that in the background, rotate that around or something. Maybe even make it red. So this is a good way to check, and I'll get rid of that empty out of the way. So the cool thing is this leaf, it can cast a shadow, and you can even see up there it's casting the same shape of shadow that the leaf is. Okay, we can see that it's transparent around the outside. That light's too intense, so it does look a little bit weird. Let's turn it down. Keep turning it down, maybe 200 or something like that. And so then we've got a leaf. That's our first leaf. And essentially we have to do that 5 times. Now this leaf is 100% flat. So what we could do is we could grab this middle line and we could possibly even bring it forward a little bit, G, Y, give it a bit of a bend in there so it's not completely flat. Does look a little bit bent. You could put some other things like subdivision surface. If you're being really picky, you'd try and line up that bend with the spine through the middle. There are other maps and stuff that can be done to add in extra stuff, but that'll do for our purposes. So what I want you to do is to make your best effort and making 5 different leaves. Make sure each leaf has its own name, and then in our next little video what we're going to do is stick these leaves all over something to make a bush. So